Want to know why? Ask how. Howard the Humongous. Donald Trump's success poses a puzzle, not a puddle, a puzzle, a riddle, a mystery. Today, the New York Times came out with a story based on interviews with 50 women that Donald Trump had treated like fancy wristwatches or like interior decor, objects and not people. But the story is likely to do Trump good, not harm. In fact, from this point on, every negative Trump headline will have the opposite of the usual effect. It will bond Trump's followers to him more tightly, not less. It'll be an assault by them, the bad guys, against us, the true believers, and assaults by outsiders glue groups together. But why do Trump's followers stick with him, and why does he seem to gain more followers with every negative headline? Why is he like a locomotive about to hit the mosquito of Hillary Clinton? There are 6 possible explanations. I've got 6 guesses for you. See which ones you think apply. Guess number 1. It's the "sometimes I believed as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast" explanation from Through the Looking Glass, from The White Queen, Alice in Wonderland. The measure of your belonging to a group depends on how many impossible things you can believe. Are there any historical examples of this? You bet. Once upon a time, a kid named Joshua of Nazareth went down to Jerusalem with his 12 disciples at Passover. His prediction was that the kingdom of God was about to arrive when he did his Passover service. Did it happen? No. The kid was crucified. It was a miserable, humiliating, painful death. He screamed from the cross, my God, why hast thou abandoned me?" Did his followers abandon him simply because his predictions didn't come true? Not on your life. They are still around today. They are the members of the world's biggest religion. They are Christians. In the 1800s, a guy named William Miller in New York State predicted that the world would end in 1944. The world failed to end in 1944. It was called the Great Disappointment. Did the Great Disappointment remove William Miller's followers? No. The fact that his prediction hadn't come true glued many to him. Today there are 18 million of William Miller's followers. They are called Adventists, Seventh-day Adventists and Adventist Christians. That's explanation number 1. The 6 impossible things before breakfast proves that I am a faithful, loyal member of the group, and you are not. Explanation number 2. An opponent glues a group together. Let's start with a social psychology experiment in which a group of college girls were divided in 2. Each group was approximately 100 girls. The girls were given the description of a social group that had been deliberately designed to be utterly meaningless, purposeless. One group of girls got into the group by simply signing a piece of paper. The other group of girls got into the group by going through a 6-month painful initiation. When the girls who had merely signed a piece of paper showed up for the first meeting, they realized that the group was about nothing, and they immediately disappeared, never to return again. But when the girls who had gone through 6 months of painful initiation got together, they had something in common, something that bonded them very deeply, and they had invested 6 months of their lives in this group. They were not going to throw it away. Those girls stuck with that group. It became meaningful because of the difficulty of the experience that they had gone through together. Fidel Castro used a principle like that. Every attack from the United States was a gift to Fidel Castro. Why? He could point at the wicked enemy and say the reason beef prices were high, the reason that food was scarce, the reason clothing was scarce was because of those wicked Americans. And he could bond his people together on the basis of a shared difficulty, a shared enemy. And the shared enemy in this case is the liberal press, people like the New York Times, or people like me, a Democrat, a liberal who is very skeptical about Donald Trump, to say the least. So explanation number 1, the 6 impossible things before breakfast. Explanation number 2, a shared difficulty, particularly being under fire from a shared enemy. Explanation number 3, Antonio Damasio is a neuroscientist who has conducted experiments in which he's taken one group of people who have brain damage to their emotional center, the limbic system, and another group of people who have brain damage to their rational system, the prefrontal cortex. He's given each of these people a pile of cards, like cards of Monopoly, with bonuses and with penalties. One group of cards has been deliberately poisoned. It's got really big, tempting bonuses, but it's got really big penalties, and you can't win. The groups of people, who do you think gets it that one of these groups of cards is poisoned first? The people with their reason intact but no emotion, or the people with their emotion intact but no reason? I got a clue. The people with reason intact don't get it. And even once they do understand which is the poison pile, they can't resist those big bonuses, and they keep playing the poison pile, which is guaranteed to undo them. The people with their emotions intact, you can tell by measuring their galvanic skin response, get it very quickly. And once they get it, they avoid the poison pill of cards. In other words, our instincts can know things that a rational mind doesn't. For the last 35 years, since the early days of Ronald Reagan, we've been sold a bill of goods by the movement conservatives, who tell us that if we simply take taxes, remove taxes from the super rich, and remove regulations from big business, we will all flourish. And the result has been economic catastrophe, one after another. The fact is that we are told right now that under Obama, the economy is absolutely terrible. But the fact is that Obama has created 14 million private sector jobs. That's 2 million more than Ronald Reagan created. The only person in modern times who has created more private sector jobs than Barack Obama is, guess who? Another Democrat, Bill Clinton. At some level, people have to register this the way that people with their emotional center intact registered the existence of the poison cards. And they become discontented. That's why they are going for Donald Trump. That's explanation number 3. Explanation number 4 comes from my friend Mark Prosser, who's a financial analyst, brilliant one. And Mark says that Trump is living out your fantasies and mine. So when the New York Times says that he has mistreated 50 absolutely gorgeous women, we see that as a symbol of power. We see that as being an alpha male. We see that as having a kind of harem we would all, males at least, would all really like to have. And because women find men who are attracted to, who other women are attracted to, attractive, that can conceivably make Donald Trump even more attractive. The explanation for Donald Trump is living out your fantasies and mine. Explanation number 5. When I started with Prince in 1981, Prince was an utter and complete unknown. I mapped out a pattern. I said people do not recognize the name of an artist or even that they've heard a song until they've heard it 15 times. You need massive recognition. Standard PR techniques were to get 6 major stories for an artist a month. My technique was to get 160 stories for that artist a month. And I explained to everybody what the theory was. We would be rolling a big stone up a hill, and we would have to work very hard to move it up to a certain point. Then we would reach the summit. And when we hit that summit, all of a sudden, that stone would start rolling down the hill on the other side all by itself, gathering momentum as it went. And that's what happened with Prince. Prince went from being an unknown to a person so well known that other people attached their names to his in order to get publicity for themselves. And the more people attached their names to his, the more Prince gained social magnetism, social momentum. So it's the rolling the stone up the hill effect, the celebrity effect. Donald Trump has been rolling the stone up the hill since the 1980s. He has been building his fame for over 30 years now. Explanation number 6, again, being surrounded by beautiful women proves that you're an alpha male. The bottom line is this. Even the New York Times story about 50 women that Trump has treated poorly, gorgeous women, adds to Donald Trump's celebrity. But why? You pick the reason of these 6 that you think works, or send me a better explanation. But the bottom line is this. Trump's success is a mystery worth understanding from my kind of point of view, a scientific point of view. It is the core, one of the cores of the forces of history. And until we understand the forces of history, our science isn't science yet. This is Howard T. Mungus speaking to you from the future. It's your job and my job to make, or want to know why, ask how. And now, speaking of how in the world are we going to find that salacious, sleazy, sneaky little off button? I think I've got it.